Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have a good number of you who have joined us this afternoon. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on this very timely topic that we'll be discussing today. How income and the lack thereof actually is impacting those who we serve, those who are homeless. We have some expert panelists who have joined us today, and we have a great moderator, and I'll be introducing her in just a couple of minutes. Let me just set the stage. While it may seem that obvious to some that income is necessary to obtain housing and to end homelessness, many are unaware of how deeply intertwined the two issues are. Invariably, unsheltered individuals are caught in a catch-22. Income is very difficult to secure while homeless, and it is impossible to overcome homelessness without it. Our neighbors face innumerable challenges to securing employment while living on the streets, from serious issues like disability, mental illness, and chronic illness, to more trivial but frustrating issues like misplaced documents, a lack of contact information or an address to put on their job application, limited access to transportation, cosmetic difficulties such as missing teeth or improper clothing, gaps in their employment history, and so much more. For similar reasons, even people with disabilities can struggle to secure Social Security and VA benefits without the right resources. Theodore's story is one that really sends the message and drives the message home. After gaining shelter at Father Joe's Villages and being able to shift his focus from survival to securing income, Theodore was able to secure a job as a security officer. However, he had 4 missing front teeth from his time experiencing homelessness, which prevented him from being able to excel at his job. His clients struggled to understand him when he spoke, and he was extremely self-conscious about his teeth. So Theodore was relegated to work the lower-paying night shift position. Seeing that Theodore was struggling with eating and speaking, the dental clinic at Father Joe's Villages Health Center made him dentures. Soon after receiving the dentures, Theodore was able to secure promotion, and as a result of the promotion, higher-paying wages. And there are so many stories like Theodore's. It's no wonder that the National Center on Homelessness and Poverty reports that approximately 70% of people experiencing homelessness also struggle with employment. Now, COVID-19 presents a whole new set of additional challenges for our neighbors, including crisis-level proportions of unemployment. Right now, answering the question, how do we help individuals who are homeless secure income, is more critical than ever. Of course, low-wage workers in America have suffered the largest impact from the COVID-19 crisis. Retail and leisure hospitality, which typically offer lower wages than other industries, are seeing an approximate 20% unemployment rate or higher. Today, with all of these obstacles in our path, we find ourselves asking, how can we help our neighbors secure income high enough that they can afford the region's cost of living during a time when securing income is more difficult than ever? These are the challenges and questions that our expert panelists will be exploring today. So with that, I want to introduce our moderator. In fact, it's my pleasure to introduce our fantastic moderator, Adriana Cabre. Adriana is the Vice President of Human Resources at Crinetics Pharmaceuticals and brings a wealth of knowledge about the hiring market in corporate San Diego. Adriana served on the board of Father Joe's Villages for several years and now serves as a board member for the Center for Community Solutions. Welcome, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to see you, Dick and Jim. And it's a pleasure, it's an honor for me to be here. And I want to also thank you for the amazing work that you continue to do, your staff, your volunteers. It does not go unnoticed. I know it's hard work and I appreciate it. And I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get started. So I am going to introduce the panelists today. I am in great company. We have Lisa Jones, who's the Senior Vice President at the San Diego Housing Commission, Homeless Innovation Solutions Division. This includes the programs of Housing First San Diego Housing Commission's Homelessness Action Plan, and approximately she oversees 45 San Diego Housing Commission contracts with homeless service providers, including but not limited to the City of San Diego homeless shelters and service programs. She has more than 17 years of experience in affordable housing with a focus on homeless populations and their programs. Thank you for joining us, Lisa. Glad you're here.
Good morning, Adriana. Thank you.
Our second panelist is Jessie Casement. She is our Division Director of Client Services at Father Joe Villages. She has a master's degree in conflict resolution and reconciliation from Abilene Christian University. Jessie's professional background has centered around underserved youth, and she believes wholeheartedly in the investment of youth and their communities as the most impactful and rewarding work to be done. Jessie works alongside her talented team to make housing attainable for our homeless neighbors in San Diego and other areas. Welcome, Jessie. Thank you for being here and taking the time.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And last but not least is Paul D'Alessio. Paul is the Director of Coordinated Services at Father Joe's Villages, and he's a social worker, and he has worked at Father Joe's for the last 19 years. During his time at Father Joe, Paul has worked in residential, case management, homeless prevention, day center, rapid rehousing, employment and education, mental health, and guest services departments. So he's gone everywhere. Paul is a veteran of the U.S. Navy and holds a master's degree in social work from SDSU. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your service. Thank you for everybody to be here. We're glad that you're all here. So we will have a few questions to initiate the conversation. However, I want to make sure that it's just not one panelist. If there's other panelists that want to share and bring their insight into the question, feel free to do so. And for our guests, we will have time at the end for a couple of questions in the Q&A, and I'll give some instructions on that pretty soon. So let's get started. Lisa, let me start with you and ask a question. How important is a steady income to securing housing and achieving self-sufficiency?
So I think we have to look at this as a spectrum. We have a lot of subsidized housing resources that are targeted for persons experiencing homelessness, but some of those are shorter term and not permanent solutions. Rapid rehousing, for instance, is a great program, but it's really meant to get people secured into housing and then for that subsidy to scale down over time, which means that increasing family income and that household's income is critical. So our goal is to not let lack of income be a barrier to getting people into housing, but in the long term, we need to be investing in providing the resources for employment, for career development, for educational development, so people can increase their income, and especially in those rapid rehousing programs that are only term limited from anywhere from 6 months to 24 months. And for those persons experiencing Social Security, where their Social Security is their main benefit, having an appropriate subsidy to offset that very limited income and making sure that we have programs in place to ensure that they can access that income effectively are really critical as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me ask another question. Let me go to Jessie. Jessie, can you share some of the obstacles that our neighbors face seeking employment every day?
Absolutely. There's a definite stigma attached to homelessness, and our clients face that every day in all of the activities that they do. But I would say when you're really thinking of the process involved in gaining employment, you know, there's the application process and the obstacles that are there from having the computer, having, you know, internet connectivity. So right now, so that you can do even an interview, feeling that you have an updated resume, you know, all of those things involved in the application process, let alone to do an interview, making sure that you've got the travel covered, making sure that you've got interview clothes, making sure that you feel clean and confident on the day of your interview. If there's a last minute change in the interview time, you know, that really can throw disruption into the day. If we've got a family who's looking for employment and has an interview, they've got childcare that they need to be concerned about. And then starting a job, you know, there's the clothes that someone needs for their uniform needs. Maybe there's tools that they need. Their shift time may not work exactly with their childcare that's available to them or transportation, you know, schedules that are available. So those are the basics, but then we've also got the obstacles in place around gaps in employment and maybe training or skills that need to be updated so that someone is a viable candidate to be employed. And so we're fortunate at Father Joe's Villages to have an employment and education services department that takes care of all of the soft skills that a candidate or someone looking for employment would need to feel prepared to go and look for a job and to enter the workplace. So everything from resume writing, interview skills. We've got a clothing closet so that folks can, look sharp on the day of their interview. We're able to assist with different uniform needs and things like that. So that's taking care of the soft skills. But we've also got a sector-based employment program called STEPS that hones in on different sectors that have readily available employment typically in the community. And we're able to pair this candidate with someone who's an expert in the field. Typically they're Father Joe's Villages employees. They're able to work alongside that person and gain skills in custodial, food services, maintenance, different, warehouse jobs that we know are readily available, that pay a good wage, and that can be a quick training program so that someone has the mentorship and the relationship that helps to build their confidence and helps to overcome those internal obstacles that we have. So there's not just the external obstacles, but those internal obstacles that a homeless person may be facing just because of length of time since they've been employed or outdated skills. So that's a little bit of it.
That's a little bit. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, and it's not taking for granted everything that they have to do on top of anybody else who's looking for employment. So now the competition is even increased, right?
Absolutely.
So anything else to add on this question about obstacles?
I think that like Jesse mentioned, there's the internal and external. A lot of our clients are relationship based. Mm-hmm. And so the employment and education services that we have is so important. She mentioned that we have a sector-based model, which is extremely important, and also some of the technological deficits that some of our clients have. So with those three things, the first one, that our clients are relationship-based, a lot of times, especially if you've been on the street for some time, you're reliant on others, especially for safety. And so when you go into a job interview, if you're right away, you might try to build relationship with that person. And we know that in most job interviews, that's not what the person is looking for. So you might talk about your other friends or past employment and the relationships that you had there and not sell yourself as an employee. So we have a really great employment module for interviewing, to do mock interviews. It actually brings people in to do mock interviews with individuals and can help guide through that entire process. The technological deficit, I was helping a gentleman apply for a dishwashing job at a restaurant, and the application itself required a master's degree in science from UCSD, nevertheless SDSU. And it was 5 or 6 pages of writing things. And I hear so many times, I just want to go and walk in. I just want to walk in and say, hey, I'm here. I can work or sell myself to the person in person. But that doesn't exist anymore. And so so much has changed over the years. As I mentioned, I've worked here for almost 20 years now. And if I went to apply for a job, I have no idea what it would be like to put in an application and have to do things in a technologically based world more than in a one-on-one world. And the third was our sector-based. And so a major deficit that we were seeing was that individuals were really going for jobs, really wanted to work in jobs that weren't existed in the community. So they would, and the joke that I always say is that somebody would come in and say, I want to fly the space shuttle. And we say, okay, let's train you how to fly a space shuttle. And then, you have to be in Florida to do that. And so they don't even exist anymore. So it doesn't really, it's not to that. Yeah. So I don't know what kind of space there would be now. So we looked at the sector-based employment model and to look at jobs that are always readily available in the community. So you no longer have to say, okay, we have these clients and we're going to go search for employers. And the employers don't necessarily match the skills of the clients, and the skills of the clients don't match the employers. And so it was this back and forth game. But the sector-based model, like Jesse mentioned, training to specific industries that always have openings in San Diego. And luckily, with COVID especially, a lot of those industries are still extremely relevant and will be going forward, such as culinary, security, custodial, and assisting those individuals to get a certification to give them that leg up. So if they do have one of those deficits of lack in relevant job knowledge or recent jobs, or even people to advocate for them to get the job, references, they can use that certificate to give them that leg up to get in the door for the job application and for the job.
To be considered. Yeah, that's a great segue to the next question, Paul. This is about COVID, right? So we've seen a lot of changes in the industries and the needs, and some are shutting down, some are not doing as well, some are better. What have you changed in your approach to the employment programs? What areas have you had to pivot? What are the skills and things that have changed? What are the ones that have not changed that are remain the same? And what are some of the things you're doing to adapt to help find jobs in the current job market? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, so I can jump in, and then anyone can add to it. The like Paul had mentioned, many of the fields that we're training, especially with our sector-based employment, are essential workers anyway. And so as adaptations have been made at Father Joe's Villages in our own security programs or in our own custodial programs and our own food services, our STEP students have been able to also adapt, and the curriculum has been able to adapt accordingly. So for instance, in food services, right now, we're seeing a decline in restaurant jobs. We're seeing, more of a focus in prepared meals or packaged meals. And so we were able to shift our culinary arts training in that way so that someone is getting experience, hands-on experience in preparing meals, because that is what is needed right now. So those shifts have been made in our own organization because of COVID, and our STEPS trainers are Father Joe's Villages staff. So it translates well into our STEPS programming. So we've just been making those adjustments and helping people to get the skills that are needed right now. We're definitely focusing on higher paying jobs, making sure that folks have the right training and relevant training that keeps them, competitive right now while there's more candidates for employment, and that also is COVID responsible.
Anything else related to that? I know, Paul, you talked a little bit about it, but anybody wants to add any of the changes we've had done in the last 6-7 months?
I think I'll just weigh in that one of the huge impacts to persons experiencing homelessness within the city has been, especially in the early days, as many public resources and public access resources shut down. Libraries obviously being one of those components that persons experiencing homelessness often access. And Paul mentioned something earlier when he was really talking about that digital divide, where folks that may not have the same access to online, a lot of the applications for any jobs these days are online. And it's really hard to access those when you don't have a computer, or you don't have a smartphone, or you don't have some of those technologies that others might have. And so you become less competitive. And so the resources that are provided for employment centers or for computer labs and career development centers, including the one that is offered through Father Joe's Villages, become even more critical during this time to make sure that disparity of access is addressed, and that those folks that really need to apply to those opportunities and get some support doing so.
Yeah, Lisa is so right. And, that it impacted our own computer lab. Lisa's, referring to our computer lab. We do have that available, but because of physical spacing that needs to happen with COVID, disinfection of the computer before someone gets on and after someone gets off, it really did impact the number of people that we're able to serve, even in our own computer lab. And with libraries being impacted, we've had to get creative. And so some of the COVID impact has been the way that we're able to provide those services. It didn't stop us providing the services, but it does look different. Some of the one-on-one job coaching was done over the phone, with our clients, so that our staff and client weren't face-to-face, especially at the beginning of COVID as we were figuring out safety protocols and all of that. Our computer lab and employment and education services department has reopened, but we do have the reduced capacity up there, as does everywhere else in the community. So it's how can we bring this to the clients in a different way? And that's being done virtually in a lot of cases, so that there isn't any kind of stall in our clients being able to get employment.
Great points here. And I wanted to ask Paul, can you tell us a little bit more about the SOAR program and some of the success you've seen, and maybe what people like me in HR or in other areas in the community that are listening to this can do to help Father Joe's and the work that you're doing?
Okay. So I'd like to take a step back to really talk about what employment and income and how that benefits the holistic health of our clients. As social workers, we not only look at the basic services that we can give clients, but we really look at the holistic accomplishment and the happiness, ultimately, of our clients and how we can help them bring that into our life. And we like, as social workers, we like to look at history, we like to study things and research papers. And so having looked at, even the Greek theory of eudaimonia, which is good spirit, religious teachings, we're Father Joe's villages, St. Vincent de Paul, of peace, love, and hope. Psychological studies like the Harvard Generation Study that's been going on for over 80 years now, on happiness. We really find two major intersections for happiness and holistic health with our clients. One of those is positive relationships, and the other one is hope or purpose. And employment really brings both of those things together. And I'll give a kind of an example of how it relates to our clients, and then an example of how we see it in the work that we do. And it's so striking with our staff when they see it, because when one of those aspects is reintroduced in somebody's life, you really see that person. You really see the gifts that person has. So I was standing on the street outreach with another staff member, and we were talking about different psychological principles. They were in school at the time, and asking me some questions about therapy and other aspects. And we started talking about hope. And right next to us, this tent zipper opens up on the street, and this woman comes out and she says, what you guys are talking about, I'm sorry to eavesdrop, really is striking, because I'm on the street. I've been here for 10 years. I'm a heroin addict, and what's missing in my life is hope.
Wow.
I don't have a purpose, and that's what I need to find to get out of this, to get off the street. And when I talk to people in recovery, that's the same message that they say is, what was it that happened? And they said, well, I found some hope, and what keeps me going is that same exact thing. So employment brings both of those things, positive relationships and purpose. I had a client who got a job delivering cars. They would drive cars back and forth from places that a lot of people drove to, but not away from, and return the cars. And he came and said, oh, my boss, I'm having trouble at work. We met up after work, and we were all talking about, the way we're doing this and the way we're doing that. And he was just lit up when he was talking about it, about the improvements that could be made at his employment place, and about the opinions of the other people there. And so from then on, I kind of gauged success with a client by determining that if they ever came and complained about their boss, I knew that they were on their way out into their own housing. because they had a purpose. They cared about something, and they had positive relationships through work. So along with that, some of our clients, we find about 30% can't work, or they struggle to keep regular employment. And so we help them apply for benefits. We have a current program called SOAR, Social Security Outreach Advocacy and Recovery. And that program focuses on the hardest to reach individuals, which is a real mission of Father Joe's Villages, to find the hardest to reach individuals on the street, chronically homeless individuals, usually with barriers of mental health and physical health, and assist them in obtaining benefits so they can get off the street. It's a very well built out process, started on the East Coast through SAMHSA, and working directly with the Social Security Administration, with our medical clinic, which is a huge benefit and needed component of the SOAR program to get individuals through the system. The case managers take about 40 hours per application and put together all of the medical information, meet with the individual, do really intense, focused client choice outreach with the individual to get them to apply for the system, through the system, and get approved for benefits. These are clients that could never follow through with the system on their own. They can't make appointments. They can't fill out long forms for many reasons. So, and then that write-up or medical summary report that the case managers do gets submitted to our medical clinic. They review it, sign it, it's entered as medical evidence, and then we're able, because we're hooked directly to the Social Security Administration, to follow the system the entire way through. An old analogy of applying for SSI, SSDI, was that you would fill out this application, throw it into a black hole, and something would come out at some point later. Also very beneficial for our clients who are very sick, because the application process, if done in different ways, can take up to 2 years or more to go through the whole appeal process through the court systems. So we usually get results within a few months, if not a few weeks. We've actually had results in a few days with our applications. Again, I know if there's any providers on the line, a lot of people, the first question is, well, how do I send my clients to this? It's really focused on those individuals who are in most need, that are on the street and don't have anybody to advocate for them. If somebody can fill out their own application, or if they can do it with the assistance of a case manager just to put it in, those are not the clients that SOAR really focuses on. It's really looking for the clients that need the most help. A couple examples of clients that we've helped in the program, and it's only been going on for a little over a year now. It's actually been in San Diego since 2010, and we're really trying now to focus on dedicated staff to it, organize it, train the case managers throughout the community how to do their own applications, and make it a staple, a best practice for all of San Diego. So 2 examples, we had a gentleman who was mute, homeless, really not able to communicate well, and seeing somebody with that level of disability on the street is very difficult. We were able to do outreach, get the person shelter, apply for benefits, get them benefits, and now they're in recovery. They're living in their own place, and they have a machine to help them communicate with others. And another one was an individual with severe cognitive trauma history and a pretty intense behavioral related personality disorder. Again, the person was able to follow that same process because they needed long-term outreach to that individual to get them to agree to trust our case managers to help them, because they've been told so many things in the past and pushed away so many people, family, friends, and others, and get them into treatment, income, and then ultimately housing. The R in SOAR, the recovery, I think is some of the most important aspect, or the most important aspect of SOAR. As I mentioned before, the client's happiness really is sometimes dependent on their involvement with positive relationships and purpose. And we can find that many times through work. The same concept applies for individuals who are applying for benefits. But if you flip that around and not just look at the happiness of the individual, but the overall health of our society, there are so many of our clients that have really incredible gifts that they can share with our community. And if isolated or just put away somewhere, that gift is actually is taken away from the client because they're not able to give it, but it's more taken away from our community or society. We had a client that got benefits, struggled for a long time, had a medication pile the size of my office, but was able to get into housing and was actually a pretty accomplished artist. And for the time that he was in his own place and on benefits, in his own way, he was able to really give back to the community and start actually teaching and assisting teaching art classes at one of the colleges and showing art at what was back then called the Del Mar Fair. Now I think it's the San Diego Fair. I don't know what it's called now, yeah. But was able to really give back to society. And we really believe that every person has a gift that they can share to be part of our community in their own way. And so SOAR is one way, employment is another way that our clients are able to get re-involved with the community and reach that good spirit that we all strive for.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Paul. Hope and purpose. And I think that being successful with that job is also giving value into the society, and value of self and confidence is so important. So much help behind the scenes that, we're doing here that it requires for success. And even once the job is given, how they're successful. Thank you for sharing, Paul. That was great. I'm going to remind everybody before we go into a final question, if you have submit any questions at the end for a short period of time that we will be answering some questions, you can do it in the comments section of the broadcast, or you can link in the anonymous form of the description in the comment section that Father Joe put in there. We'll be selecting a few questions and see how much time, but let's go into our last question and then we can move into Q&A. So our last question is, what can employers do to help support people who are trying to rebuild their lives and may not have any previous experience or they have significant gaps of employment? Who wants to take this one?
Well, I would say if you have jobs available, feel free to contact our Employment and Education Services Department. Aside from that, I would really encourage employers to look internally at your own hiring processes to make sure that you're not unintentionally screening out someone that is experiencing homelessness. I think of young adults who are homeless, especially, that may not have had, an opportunity to work while they were growing up because they were surviving, and maybe they're coming into the workforce without any background or any employment experience at all. There's also folks that may have gaps in their employment. So maybe there was steady employment, then there's a significant gap, that they're not comfortable talking about the reasons why there was a gap. there may be reasons for that, and it could have to do with homelessness. Also, if you're doing regular callbacks for multiple interviews, is there a reason that someone needs to come back multiple times for an interview? Because a homeless individual who's looking for employment many places may be struggling with transportation to get to all of those appointments, or to cover childcare or things like that. I think of a young family that we have that is living with us. It took the whole family pulling together to get dad a job, so looking out for each other, helping out with childcare with the older kids, being able to assist. And so this young family was able to pull together and support one another. But not every individual is going to have that kind of support in place, especially with kids being home from school right now. So there's just a lot of things to think about. So look at your internal processes and say, do we really need to do that? And if so, why? And how might that impact a homeless candidate from getting a job?
And is there a specific place or website or number that they can contact?
619-233-8500, and you can select Employment and Education Services, and our job specialists would be happy to get back in touch with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah.
I would just say, Adriana, too, that it's worth bearing in mind, and I know that Jessie and Paul covered it really well, that there's a lot of barriers for folks to taking that next step. So if you're interviewing someone that you can see might have some gap in their employment record, or might be sharing some of the challenges that they've experienced, the biggest barrier is them getting there in the first place. Right. And so the fact that they have someone that they're sitting across from, whether it's in a teleconference these days or in person, that is there, that has showed up, and that is ready to interview and take on that job, already shows a big level of commitment and desire to be employed, to be that employee that person needs to be, and to not take for granted that that the barriers that were crossed and the gaps that were bridged for that person to be there today already show a significant commitment to wanting to be a good employee for that employer, and to bear that in mind.
Thank you. That's a great point. Anything else? All right. So thank you so much. We are going to move into our Q&A section. Again, I remind everybody that the questions can be asked in the comment section, or if you go to Facebook or YouTube, comment sections as well. Copy and paste the link that we have here, and you can directly ask the questions. So do we have a question in place? Okay, here we go. Our first question is, what kind of income is needed to qualify for the housing provided by the San Diego Housing Commission? Lisa, you want to take that one?
So there are a variety of housing interventions and opportunities provided through the San Diego Housing Commission, but our largest program is the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and persons are required to be below 80% AMI, although the majority of persons on our programs and the sort of targeting of that program at a federal level is generally below 50 or 30% AMI or lower. So a significantly low income or very low income are the majority of the persons we serve, but there is no income required to be on the program, on these programs, of course, but we do target persons that are below our area AMI.
Perfect. All right, let's get our next question. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was great. Given that Housing First requires there be enough affordable housing to be successful, how is the San Diego Housing Commission and Father Joe Villages prioritizing this need?
I'll jump in really quickly, but then I'm going to pass it over to Jessie and Paul. So the Housing Commission released notices of funding availability every year that target permanent supportive housing and are specifically targeted towards persons experiencing homelessness. Housing First is really a low barrier to entry, regardless of the intervention, whether it's a shelter intervention, a day center, or permanent supportive housing. But permanent supportive housing is critical to long-time success in addressing homelessness. And the Community Action Plan on Homelessness that was adopted by the San Diego City Council last year and commissioned by the Housing Commission with the Corporation Support of Housing identified over 2,659 permanent supportive housing units that were needed for individuals experiencing homelessness over the next 10 years. So our notices of funding availability that provide gap financing to a lot of our developers and nonprofit providers, including Father Joe's, they have a big project coming up in 2022, are critical to meeting those needs.
Thank you. Who wants to take Father Joe's side of this question?
Yeah, Father Joe's Villages, we have a Turning the Key initiative. Deacon Jim has been a great steward of this initiative and making sure that it gets legs on the ground. We most recently opened Benson Place Apartments, which was a very exciting project and got a lot of people homes, beautiful homes, in a safe community. So we're excited about that. St. Teresa of Calcutta Village is going to be open soon. It's under construction currently at 14th and between Commercial and Imperial on 14th Street. So drive by and check out the progress there. It's going to be a beautiful community that will bring housing to a lot of folks that are in need of permanent supportive housing and affordable housing units. So, there's constant efforts to look at new construction and to look at revamping motels and bringing housing onto the market.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Let's take the next question. Does Father Joe Villages collaborate with local businesses to expand job prospects for clients? Who wants to take that one? Paul?
Sure. So Jesse mentioned our STEPS programs already in the past, right now, and also our job developer within our Employment and Education Services Department. So that number, 619-233-8500, that people can call into if they want to participate in any of our job or for any of our job seekers, or we also do quite a bit of outreach in the community through our job developers to look for employment in the community for our clients. We do have internships that we do with different businesses for culinary and other aspects in the community and throughout San Diego. And with that, kind of going back a little bit to the question about what employers can do, one of the things we look for are really market rate type jobs for our clients. While we do internships, which are always important, we're looking for jobs that our clients can do where they're a part of the culture of that employment. So as an employer, if you know you're hiring somebody that's currently homeless or living in a shelter, really not treating them differently or as this is a special job for this person, aids them in being part of that culture and reaching that real camaraderie. When we looked at different models of employment and assisted employment, some of the models that were most evidence-based were those that the assistance was always in the background. So it wasn't that you're creating a job for this individual and then they're just the focus of that one job and kind of it's a charity type position. When individuals are working and they're expected to be at a certain level and then they can complain about the boss and the other people are not going to say, well, you're a special person, you're not going to get fired anyway because this is a special job for you. But when they complain about the boss and the other people are like, oh yeah, I understand about that. And they can take part in those positive relationships. That's so important. So that's the type of placement we're really looking for is places where people can go in and have those skills. And again, we're training towards those skills that are open in our community in San Diego.
And set them up for success too, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. Let's take our fourth question. What kind of partnerships does the San Diego Housing Commission utilize to increase the success of the people they serve? Lisa, that's right up your alley.
I was like, wow, that is a broad and hefty question. So I think I'm going to take this on two levels. One, we actually have through the majority of our programs in our Housing Choice Voucher program, we have an Achievement Academy. And this Achievement Academy is available to any of our program participants through our Housing First San Diego programs, which are our homelessness programs that we directly operate, or through our Housing Choice Voucher program to help folks access career and educational supports. There's a large computer lab. There's connection to employment opportunities. There's connection to education opportunities. And this has actually been running for quite some time now and is also part of the Envision Center that recently launched last year. So there's a lot of investment we do there to help people find their level of self-sufficiency that they can attain, that's successful for them, that creates quality of life for them and prosperity within their households. So that's our Achievement Academy. But on the other side of it, we also consider the people we serve as our partners. So our partners are extremely valuable to the work we do, and a lot of the work that we do can't be done without them. And we're really just sort of the facilitator of funds off to these contracted service providers that do such a great job in this space. And our commitment there is to invest in the opportunities to bringing in additional training and learning collaboratives for their staff and their teams to help bolster and support the internal training that they're already doing. A lot of the money that nonprofits get into their bank accounts is what we call ring fenced, or it can only be targeted for certain things. So anything that the Housing Commission can do to invest in training and collaboration opportunities to help support folks' bandwidth and to help support trauma-informed care, harm reduction, to rapid rehousing learning collaboratives is really critical. But the one I'm going to just take a moment to market right now is one of the things that our providers have really communicated and driven home to us over the last couple of years is the need for more skilled workforce like Paul and Jesse and all of their staff that do this work in this industry. The need for skilled, well-trained, client-centered homelessness industry staff is becoming more and more important. And we kind of don't have enough of them. I don't think really, although Father Joe saw very early on that there, and has been in place for many years, that there's going to be an ongoing need in our community for this type of work. We not, as a workforce and as a business and educators, we've never really targeted this as an industry, and it is. And the need for skilled staff and the need to continue to bring in skilled staff and grab those students as they go through their different educational careers is really important. In addition, some of the folks that are best suited to deliver supportive services for homeless services are folks that have had lived experience themselves, right? Folks that have experienced the homeless service system, or folks that have experienced challenges in drug use or alcohol addiction, that have achieved a different quality of life and sustainable quality of life for themselves, and now want to turn around and work in that environment, but they may not have the educational skills or background to make that easily accessible to them. So over the last year, the Housing Commission has been partnering with the San Diego City Community College District to create and implement a new pilot program called PEER. And the name PEER stands for, and I always have to look it up, even though I'm the one who named it, Program for Engaged and Educational Resources. And this is a 2-credit course that is starting actually next week through San Diego City College that is really what we consider homelessness industry 101. So it starts at a policy level, what national policy looks like, what regional policy looks like, and then what policy within the city of San Diego looks like, and then brings it down to a practical and practice approach at the second half of the class. So we go from a very high level policy all the way down to practical interventions around what does motivational interviewing mean, what does harm reduction mean, what does critical time intervention mean, and how do those different types of best practices roll out in day-to-day frontline service delivery. And we'll be reaching out to frontline staff from our providers as panelists, as well as some of our leaders in this work as well. This is a course that runs from October through about middle of December. It's the first course of its kind, to the best of our knowledge, in the country. And the goal of this course is really to grab students that are moving through our community college system who are working in those social sciences and get them connected to this industry, understand how this industry works, understand the value of working within this industry, and get them connected to our industry leaders for job opportunities. And that also the secondary aim and that concurrent aim is really to provide a very accessible foundational level course to folks with lived experience who want to turn around and work in this field and provide their really unique experience and expertise back to the folks that they serve. And it's an opportunity for them to access that class as well. So we're very, very excited about it. We were hoping to have at least 15 to 20 students enrolled in our first pilot. Apparently, when new classes start, they aren't usually well enrolled in. We have 40 students enrolled and have a waiting list. But it's really our first phase of trying to respond to the needs of our partners, like our service providers, to help invest in a skilled workforce to continue to support the progress of this industry.
Which community college are you having it with?
San Diego City College.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you. That's a great oversight. And I know you can talk a lot more about it.
I'm going to stop.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. Let's take one more question. What is the one resource that, if available in abundance, will reduce homelessness in San Diego? That is a great question. Who wants to take that one? With our topic today should be jobs and opportunities, but let's see what the experts have to say.
I think that the obvious answer to reducing homelessness is housing. However, like we've discussed today, housing is one part of the expense. So there's, someone has to be housed, but they also need the means to support that housing, whether they're paying their rent. For those who don't have a subsidy, but for those who do have a subsidy, there's still life expenses, right? There's still vehicles and food and utilities and all of the things that people need, birthdays and stuff that people need to be able to fund. And so I would say housing doesn't do it alone. We need employment, and employment can't do it alone. We need the housing. So I can't pick just one. I picked two.
Anybody else? Agree?
It's a kind of a dangerous question, because, I think everybody recognizes how unique our clients are, that everybody has their own independent barriers. We all do, minus pizza, by the way, if you're wondering, and that people need different progressive engagement models to overcome those barriers. So like Jesse said, housing is definitely one of those, shelter to get people directly off the street. But to meet somebody's, again, holistic well-being, I'd say that community support would be the one item that we really look for. When we do job interviews, we always ask what are 5 barriers that our clients most often face. And one of the best answers in that is community support, lack of community support, that a lot of our clients don't have the family, the friends, and other things in place that would otherwise have buffered them from becoming homeless. We all know somebody in our own family that would be homeless if it wasn't for the support that they were getting from their family. And so community support is one of the biggest things that is needed in abundance to reduce homelessness in San Diego.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. So that gives us enough time to close out. I think we got a lot of good questions, a lot of very informative discussion. I want to thank our panelists, Lisa Jones, Jesse Caseman, and Paul. Thank you so much, Paul D'Alessio. And thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, for your openness and sharing. I'm going to take away a lot from myself on this, so I appreciate it. I also thank all the participants and all the people that are logging in later to listen to us and learn more about this important topic. And it's very complex, so we have to make sure that we have all the tools and all the help that we can to support everybody that needs that extra help and is ready to move forward. I would like to now invite Deacon Jim back into the screen and see if he can say a few comments and closing remarks for our session today.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Adriana. Well, let me just start by thanking each and every single one of you. At the outset, I mentioned that you are expert panelists, and you did not disappoint. In fact, you excelled. I'm so impressed with the information that has been shared throughout this hour. I'm sure that our viewers have been as well. I can tell that by the comments that we've been receiving. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jesse. And of course, Adriana, you did a great job moderating. I know that can be challenging, but you really did a great job. And so I thank each and every single one of you. I particularly like the fact that not only did you discuss innovative solutions, which are so very, very important, most importantly, you put a face on those who were blessed to serve. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And so I thank you for doing that as well. For those who have been able to join us on the Zoom call, I appreciate that you have been able to do that, and you've taken the time. I hope that you have found it informative. We will continue to keep you engaged virtually for the time being, but you can always get additional information by visiting our website, neighbor.org. I do look forward to seeing you in person when it's safe to do so, and that will come about hopefully soon. At least that's my prayer. In the meanwhile, I thank you for your support. You've been very, very gracious to us throughout these months, especially. So I do thank you for your support, and especially for your prayers. They're important. Know that I keep you in my prayers, that you remain healthy. God bless you.